Good morning, everyone. We are so excited that you're here. Welcome to the Digital Strategy webinar for North Texas Giving Day, being put on by Communities Foundation of Texas and the RKD group, and we have several special guests. Remember to mute your lines. And make sure that you dial in if you can't hear us. That's the dial-in code. And remember to mute your line and turn off your cameras. And if you have a question, please use the chat function. And we are going to go through the presentations, but then we will have Q&A at the end of this webinar. So, as you know, we are gearing up for North Texas Giving Day that is on 9/19/19. We are really excited. This is Carol Golia speaking to you. I oversee marketing at Communities Foundation of Texas. And our agenda for this call is to welcome you, which you are now welcomed, and then to get into some of what we learned about Giving Day last year and some tips and tools that we are sharing with all of you for this year. Corinne Manning from our team is going to do that. Then Jen Thompson from the RKD group is going to do a presentation along with her colleagues from the SPCA and North Texas Food Bank. And then we are also going to hear from some other speakers from Big Brothers Big Sisters. And then we'll have Q&A and closing remarks. So as far as CFT goes, many of you know that we do much more than Giving Day, and the way that we approach our work is to build thriving communities, and we do that by amplifying the impact of resources. We start by building strength, then growing giving, catalyzing change with still thriving communities. We do that through North Texas Giving Day by building all of your strength so you can grow giving and catalyze change, but we also do that with individuals and families and businesses and their giving and several programs that we run around the state. So as I mentioned, the speakers today are going to be Jen Thompson from RKD Group, Mara Davies from SPCA, Lexi Kay from North Texas Food Bank, and Andrew Young from Big Brothers Big Sisters.
All right, thank you all so much for joining us today. Now I would like to hand it over to Jen Thompson from the RKD Group. Jen?
Thanks. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you can hear me okay, but let me know if you can't. I'm excited to be joined here with Maura and Lexi, some groups that we work with, so they might jump in from time to time and add some commentary. Just a few things I'm going to cover today. How to get the most out of email. Some best practices for your website, things that some people I think forget about doing on Giving Day or before, some more ideas for social media, and some bits about stewardship and then paid media and online advertising as well. And everybody get your cell phones ready because we're going to do a little interactive poll in a second. Just a hot minute on RKD Group. We are a direct response firm, which means we do direct mail, online fundraising, helping charities across the U.S. and in North Texas. So let us know if there's anything we can do to help you. So grab your phones, go to sli.do and enter the event code 2636. We want to see why you guys are participating in North Texas Giving Day and hopefully get some information about how we can make sure the content today works for you. So right now, raise more money efficiently is leading the poll. And I think on your phones you should see the results as they're coming in. Wow, it's the heavy favorite right now, 50+%. Awesome. Well, that's generally my goal with the online fundraising is just more money. There's always awareness or keeping people engaged, but at the end of the day, that's how a lot of people are going to be judging whether or not they had a good, successful day. So thanks for taking the poll. The biggest things I want to make sure you understand are like how people hear about North Texas Giving Day. And the number one reason in the surveys that were given out last year for the donors is communications that came directly from the agencies. So what you send out is what's going to determine the day. Your messaging is important. And what you also, that's through email, that's through Facebook. What you put out there is how well you're going to do.
And just to throw something in there really quickly, we start our communications with the SPCA of Texas around the 1st of August. So we go in pretty heavy.
Yeah, there's no reason why you can't start now, for sure. And why do people give? What motivates them? So what do you need to put in your messaging? Talk about matching funds. Get some matching funds. Talk about the bonus funds. People want to know that giving on that day means that their money is going to go further than normal. People were personally asked to donate. People won't give if you don't ask. That's always the number one thing in direct response. You have to do the asking and get other people to help you do the asking. It shouldn't just be the emails you send out. Get your board, get your leadership, get your friends, get your family out there talking about it as well. And people also want to feel like they're part of something bigger. So they're helping the whole community as part of the day. So, use that in the messaging that you put out there, that it is helping your cause and your mission, but it's also helping the community. So a little bit on email best practices. You can start now, as Maura said. July, August, save the date mentions. Your e-newsletters, social media are great to be putting those messages out there. By September 1st, you should start talking about it's coming. The day is, weeks away at that point. And then on the 9th, as soon as the giving opens, you should be hitting people hard with schedule your gift now. Don't be afraid to start asking people to give as early as the 9th. Don't wait until the 18th to do that, and the 19th. And on the 18th, push out a message that it's tomorrow. It's happening tomorrow. It's hours away. Day of for email. If you're a small organization and you look at this schedule and you think, I can't possibly manage sending out messages every hour, every few hours, compose one really strong message, send it out multiple times throughout the day, take out the people who opened it or that you start to see who give, but use that message. Don't be afraid to email more than once. If you're a large organization, you have a bigger staff, change up your messages, plan it out that there's a get up and give message, do something around noontime for how, having lunch relates to why it's important to give to you, your organization. Still time to give, last chance, final hour. These are all good touch points and sort of themes that you can work into your messaging. More importantly, keep it simple. Don't send out emails that say, volunteer with us, donate, post on social. People need one call to action. Keep it scannable. People don't exactly read every word in an email. So have a good subject line, have good headlines, make it so that they're on their phone, they can just skim through it and know exactly what you want them to do. Remember the matches and the bonus funds motivate, so be sure to include messaging about that. Those are great for the headlines and the call-outs. You can even include logos for your matching, for your sponsors. And think mobile first, because most people are going to look at the message on their phone first. Probably going to be 50, 60, could be up to 80% of the people, that's where they're going to see your message. So make it easy to read on the phone. And I'm going to show a couple examples of some content that SPCA of Texas has done in the past few years. See if I can get this to run. Well, they're not playing. And I was going to more talk about how they've related their content to the different times of day and how they've worked in their mission related to working with animals into their daily schedule of messages.
Yes, well, there are these 2 cute videos that we've done. These are actually done through a service called Powtoon. There's a bunch of them out there. They're usually paid, but it's a relatively minimal amount. And so one of the videos here is just all about the SPCA of Texas. The other is about how to give, trying to make it really simple. So the one that you're seeing right now, the Hi, have you heard about the SPCA of Texas? That one just goes into who and what is the SPCA of Texas? What is our mission? How many animals do we serve? What types of animals we serve? What do? We rescue, we rehabilitate, and we rehome animals. And we have really found over the years the most important thing you can do is to relate very simply, like Jen said, your mission to the messaging. The one time we really tried to deviate from that a little bit, it didn't work as well. We tried to do a kind of a more complicated message, and even when we looked at social media reach, we had 4 times the reach on social media and a lot bigger response when we just told people the story of what we do. We rescued this animal, we rehabilitated this animal, and here he or she is in a happy home telling that story throughout the day. So the second little cartoon we had was making it really easy to give. Oh, maybe I'll play for a second. But the second video is just how easy it is to give. It was simple. It's as simple as 1, 2, 3. So just walk through, click this link, make a gift, and pat yourself on the back. So really explaining the process. Before we had the cartoon video, we actually got even closer to our mission and did a cute little voiceover video where we had one of our staff members' dogs sitting at their desk and pretending with a human voiceover that the dog was actually the one making the gift on their Texas Giving Day. So that one also got a really high response. It's like we're talking about, staying topical and then really focusing on mission over anything more complex is really what has worked best for us. So it's not just, hey, it's North Texas Giving Day, make a gift. It is relating exactly what you do to why people should give, and that's what makes the biggest difference in that connection. Going back a second, too, on the emails, Jen mentioned that making a connection to that lunchtime. What we did working with RKD was mentioning how much food we do provide to animals. So, here's how much food it takes to feed the average dog or the cat. So that's that relationship connection that Jen was talking about.
Cool. Thanks, Mara. And just in terms of email and planning ahead, right now is the time to get more emails. So look at your website, see if you have a sign-up option on your website. If you don't, put one up now. Talk on social media, encourage people to sign up, send them a link to wherever they can sign up to get your emails. And then look at other places, so your events, your volunteer lists, other places in your organization that might be collecting email addresses. Get those folks to opt in to receive your messages. Build up that list now. It's your chance so that on the day and in the days leading up to it, you are talking to the most people possible. Also look at who you have on your email list. Segmentation can be really important for some groups. If you're a school, if you have alumni, if you have volunteers, you might want to customize messages a little differently to them than you would to the rest of your file. Major donors, lapsed donors, past North Texas Giving Day donors, those are all ones that you could break out. You could potentially ask them to give a little bit more money or to encourage them to give because they supported you last year. So if you have a team who can look at your messaging and come up with your key themes and then look at dividing it up into some key segments, you'll get even more out of the day. Just a moment on email engagement and deliverability. Look at your list now. Good email deliverability means you're only sending to people who really are only opening your stuff in the last 12 months. Some email providers will say in the last 6 months. But now's the chance to take out the people who aren't doing anything. You won't lose anything by not emailing people who never open your emails anyway. And depending on your email service provider, this may help you save a little bit of money. If you are going to plan to send 3, 5 emails the day of, you're not going to get charged as much because you're not emailing as many people. A little bit on website best practices. Think about a landing page for North Texas Giving Day. Some people might have a blog post. Some people might have a press release. Have something that you can put a variety of options on. This is the thing you're going to point people to in the coming months. You want to have why give, how you can help, connect it back to your cause and your mission. When the scheduled giving options are available, you can have those buttons on there. This is a great place to talk about the peer-to-peer fundraising and why it's important, and a place to drive people who want to learn more about doing that for you. It's also a place to talk about how to get your offline gifts in for the day if people need to mail in a check or drop off cash to your doors. This is where you can tell them how to do that. So it can still be a gift for North Texas Giving Day. It's also another great place to put sponsor, matching gift sponsor names, logos. I'm sure all of your sponsors would appreciate getting that recognition. And it's just a great place that you can point people to and keep adding to it. And then after the day of, you can also put on there how well you did and thank everyone. It's another opportunity for some stewardship. One way to think about promoting North Texas Giving Day, some people do a light box or a pop-up on their website. For SPCA last year, we did a whole homepage takeover. If you went to their homepage, all you saw was this big, giant North Texas Giving Day screen with a little link at the top that says, no, I just want to go to spca.org. You know, if you have a hero image or a slider on your homepage, make sure it's on there. Look at your website and look at your most visited pages and make sure you have some promotion on those pages because some people may not even start at your homepage. Make sure you've got something everywhere so that people aren't missing out. And then on the day of, especially, look at all of your Donate Now buttons on your homepage. You might have one in the top navigation. You might have one in the middle of the page, one in your footer. Take all of those and redirect them to your page on North Texas Giving Day's website. That's another way to just drive all of the giving on that day. A little bit about social media. The Save the Date mentions, you want to start getting those out there. And it's just a good way to start talking about how you're involved in the community and why it's important to give on that day. Scheduled giving as soon as that's open. You know, you could have daily messages about that. 9 days to go, 8 days to go, 7 days to go. You can do a countdown. You can be as creative as you want with those. The fundraising, getting people, encouraging people to create pages for you. And then day of, you'll want a similar schedule like you have for the email. Start a conversation with people, get them talking about it, ask them why they're giving to you. Anything you can do to get those likes and shares will also help because all of those people's friends will start considering making a gift that day. You know, influencers, everybody talks about that big YouTuber or Instagram person. You know who you have who regularly comments on your posts, who will talk about you, who's your biggest followers and fans. Ask them to be a voice for you on North Texas Giving Day. Give them a series of messages that they can post about you. Ask them to be a fundraiser. Look at who your influencers are and think about how they can help you. Here's some tools that you can consider using to help you find influencers if you've never gone this route. Some of these tools are free or have free parts. Some you can pay for. I would say try it out. It may help you connect with someone that you don't realize supports you. I had a client who used a similar service and found out that they had a famous author on their email file that they weren't aware of. And they could reach out to him and say, you know, start asking for a bigger gift. A little bit on some emerging technology that's out there. Facebook has chatbots. I don't know if anybody's using those yet, but those can help you set up some key messages that will just respond back to people automatically. And you can use the bots through Facebook Messenger to broadcast messages out to your file. So we haven't at RKD done this yet for anyone, but we're looking at it now for this and for other clients and their missions. But on the day of, imagine if you could post on social media, if you're sending out emails, you've got your board making phone calls, and then you could message every single person on Facebook that likes your page with a message about North Texas Giving Day. It's one more new opportunity where you can get some outreach. Plan ahead. Use a small ad budget on Facebook to get likes, to get more likes, so you have more people to talk to on the day of. The likes campaign on Facebook, it costs less than $1 to get likes. We recommend doing even just a couple $100s to see what you can get to help grow your overall fan base. Paid media, definitely consider banner advertising. That's great for the scheduled giving. Facebook advertising, boosted posts, or ads on Facebook, which also run on Instagram, on the day of. You can just be hitting up as many people as possible. You can expand it out to people who like your type of cause. And then your Google Grants, probably not going to be great on the day of, just because if everybody's paying or trying to get an ad for North Texas Giving Day as a search term on the day of, it's going to be hard. But if you've got that landing page from now until the 19th of September, you can be using your Google Grant to promote that. If you don't have a Google Grant, definitely reach out to RKD because we can help you figure out how to get one. It's free advertising through paid search on Google. And a little bit on stewardship. I'm hoping that Lexi from North Texas Food Bank will help me out here and talk about why it's important to say thank you and some of the better ways to do it. SPCA sends out hourly thank you emails to everyone who donates in the last hour. Some groups send it out the day after. Some people do maybe a couple of times throughout the day. They'll get all of the email addresses and send out a thank you. I think social media shout-outs are great because that'll get some more engagement on social throughout the day. And Lexi, you want to talk about what you guys do?
Sure. Well, thanks to CFT, all donors will receive an email confirmation and tax receipt when they make their gifts online, which is fantastic. For our organization on North Texas Giving Day, we had a staff member on our team monitoring our donations that were coming through our CFT nonprofit dashboard. And for any donations over $500, our team called and or emailed these donors for immediate stewardship. Having that personal connection with our donors is something we always strive for and gives us an opportunity to share how much of an impact their donation makes on this day of giving, which is critical. The day after North Texas Giving Day, we sent a digital thank you email to all of our donors who gave under $500. And in this email, we shared how grateful we were for the support and for our organization as a food bank. We shared how many meals were ultimately provided to show the substantial impact. And we also took this time to thank our generous match sponsors. I would recommend to craft this email in advance of North Texas Giving Day. That way you can easily have it ready to send. In the weeks after North Texas Giving Day, we then looked at our digital strategy to see how many donors were new to our email database, how many already existed, and then introduced the new donors to our digital cultivation fold to get them more connected to our organization and receive regular communications. We saw high engagement in future email sends to these new donors and wanted to make sure they weren't just communicated with on North Texas Giving Day, but throughout the year as well.
Thanks, Lexi. I would just say I don't think you can say thank you enough. They get the thank you from CFT, and then they should get something from you. And I think it doesn't hurt maybe, in the weeks following to get something else. If you don't have the information about the impact and the number of meals that came out from that day, if you have to do something else, you can work that into a message later on, but all of that's just going to help for good stewardship with those donors in the future. And I know we've thrown a lot at you. There's a lot of pieces that you can schedule. We put together a little run of show that would help you lead up to, on the day of, all the messages you need to plan, all the emails by the hour, what you're going to send out, social media posts, website changes you want to do. We've done this for SPCA of Texas because it's okay at midnight. We're going to change the buttons on the website back to the regular donate ones. Don't forget to do that. And when does the light box go up? And when does it come down? And what time do the emails send out? So it's really helpful to get organized like that. You can go to rkdgroup.com/ntgd and download this run of show schedule. I hope it's helpful for everyone. There's an email address on that page, so if you have any questions about it or need some more follow-up, feel free to send us an email. I will get it. We want to be here and help you as much as possible. Everyone go out and get digital. I know it's get up and give, but I want everybody to be digital and think about that and how it can help your program. Carol and team, thanks for letting us do that.
Great, yes, and I will thank you so much. And continue asking your questions on the comments, but then we are going to transition over to our next speaker as well from Big Brothers Big Sisters. And Andrew, are you on the line?
Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, we can. Great.
Great, good. Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much to CFT. Great presentation. We're really excited to be a part of this. And I'll just say next slide every time I want to go to the next slide. So I'll use this moment to say next slide. So just a little bit about Big Brothers Big Sisters. We're the oldest. If you're not familiar with us, I'm sure many of you are. We're the oldest and largest one-to-one mentoring organization in the United States. We've been serving North Texas for almost 93 years now. So we have incredible tenure in the community. And we're really thankful and proud to be a part of the larger nonprofit landscape that's helping change the lives of children, especially through mentoring relationships. If you want to learn more about us, just go to our website, Big Brothers. It's bbbstx.org. Sign up to volunteer. We always need volunteers. All right, next slide, please. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time just talking about, as a case study, what North Texas Giving Day's done for us. I will echo everything that RKD just said. We have, over the last 2 years, been doing something similar to what they just described. And when I first came to the organization 2 years ago, we really did a redesign of North Texas Giving Day, putting a lot of everything that was just mentioned into place, as well as professionalizing around our fundraising and really just being better fundraisers. So a lot of the success that I'm going to outline is a part of what they just described, as well as just putting in better fundraising practices. But as you can see on this slide, we've been able to substantially increase the revenue that we've seen through North Texas Giving Day over the past 2 years by doing these things. We've had a 45% increase in revenue just in the last year, which is pretty exciting. If you can go to the next slide, please. So one of the most exciting things about this, and what I think is pertinent to this conversation, is the growth that we've seen in those average donations under $1,000. We as an organization really mark $1,000, $1,500 as our, quote, major gift level or middle gift level. And everything under that is sort of your bread and butter annual fund dollars. So those $200, $250 gifts, we've really seen over the last 2 years a steady rise in the amount that people are giving below $1,000, which is exciting and a great way for us to start our end-of-year fundraising. If you can go to the next slide. We've also been able to increase our total number of donors significantly. And again, I think a lot of that comes from being good marketers, really thinking about who you're reaching out to, all your different groups, all your different segments, and putting a lot of these practices that were just described into place. Next slide. And then we've also been able to attract a lot of new North Texas Giving Day donors, which is huge for us. And in my personal opinion, this is a great resource for the nonprofit community in North Texas. It's a great rallying cry to really bring in new support and generate that new support using this as a beacon of giving, and then engaging those donors over the year to pull them deeper into your organization. Okay, next slide, please. So I wanted to touch on something RKD already touched on, since this is about digital marketing. I wanted to provide our campaign timeline this year. It pretty much aligns with what RKD has already talked about. Just as a case study, one thing that we've seen, and just to underscore what RKD has already described, you really can talk about North Texas Giving Day too long and too much. You want to concentrate who you're talking to and when you're talking to them to maximize the impact of your communications, whether it's through email, social media. Last year we started much earlier, and our frequency was much higher earlier in that campaign. And I will say that people did tune out. And honestly, I don't think it's because they didn't want to give or didn't want to participate. I think they may have actually thought it already happened by the time North Texas Giving Day rolled around. And so this year we're committing to that mid-July point as a quick, as RKD just said, save the date, announcing our matching gift campaign through email, through social media. And then we picked touch points throughout the campaign, very similar to the sample campaign schedule they provided. in which we'll ask people to start doing specific tasks in preparation for North Texas Giving Day. So August 1st is really, the first time someone can do something about North Texas Giving Day. They can create a fundraising page. So building your digital communications around that as an ask, please create your fundraising page. Here's what you can do about this upcoming campaign. The next opportunity is September 9th, which is when people can start leveraging those fundraising pages and raising money through the scheduled giving. And then, of course, September 19th is that huge fundraising push. And so our frequency will increase up to September 9th and through September 19th. Again, we probably do 4 to 5 emails on September 19th. Then we'll send out a thank you email on the 20th. I love what RKD said about other ways to thank your donors. For those smaller nonprofits out there, one thing I will say, if you're writing thank you cards, that can be really daunting. Bring in a company, bring in another organization, get your volunteers, get your board to pre-write those thank you cards. So all you have to do is when you get that gift report from CFT, just do a quick mail merge for labels and get those out the door. We found that's a much easier way to thank people much quicker. So that's just a little piece of advice there. Next slide, please. So I wanted to talk a little bit, and RKD already touched on this, and again, all of this is just to say I can't agree more with what they've obviously laid out so well. But I wanted to talk about who we've included in our North Texas Giving Day communications. We go back to lapsed donors. We go back to past donors. We go to current donors, people who've given earlier in the year, who might be ready to give another $100, another $1,000. This is a great opportunity to maximize their giving and move them up into the major gift level from the $500 level to, say, the $1,500 level. We also target our board members and our volunteers. But one thing that's really important, and RKD already mentioned this, is we segment our messaging for every single one of those groups. For lapsed donors, the messaging is, come support us again. This is a great opportunity. We always have matching gifts, which you'll see at the bottom. So for a lapsed donor, that's been a good rallying cry for maybe re-engaging because they can take advantage of that matching gift. Past donors who gave last year, this is a great re-engagement tool. If you have not been re-engaging them or unsuccessfully re-engaging them, the matching gift sweetens the pot a little bit, and it's a great way to just improve your retention. And then for our board members and volunteers, that's where our messaging really is. For volunteers, if they're not giving, please give. So converting volunteers into donors, which is huge for us. We have over 2,000 volunteers just in Dallas. Across North Texas, we have over 3,000. They know you best. Create very specific messaging to them via email, via phone call, via text, via even social media, and do some cross-promotional outreach there to ask them to take the next step and not just give up their time, but give up their dollars. That's a great engagement opportunity. And for board members, we ask them to create fundraising pages. So last year, our board members raised over $25,000 through their fundraising pages, which was really exciting for us. I think board members love the opportunity to not be just asked for money, but be asked to go do something else, like become a fundraiser and help ask their network for dollars. It's more exciting than just writing a check. And that is one thing that CFT asked me to talk a little bit about as well, which I'll do on the next slide. So if you can go to that, please. So this is an example. It's kind of hard to see here. This is an example of one of the fundraising pages that our board members set up. She really leaned into the personal narrative. I think this is a great opportunity to get your closest friends to tell their story. If you have an active board, asking them to talk about, use North Texas Giving Day as a way to talk about why they care about your organization, why they're involved, why they give, is so powerful. This is a great example of someone who did just that. She's a big herself. She was a board member. She told her story, kind of hard to see here, and then took advantage of that to raise money. That said, just for everyone out there on the call, that is not everyone's choice. Not everyone wants to take the time to do that. So it's really important to provide your own language that they can simply copy and paste in those fundraising pages. You really want to get to a place where you're spending more time asking them to share their fundraising pages on social media and less time asking them to set up fundraising pages. We've found a few people last year spent a lot of time creating their fundraising pages and then really didn't know what to do with them. So I would encourage you to, when in doubt, just provide some great impactful language about why people should give so they can put that in the summary, the personal appeal, provide your logo or an impactful picture, and spend more time asking them to share their pages. And then one other really quick note on this as it relates to the digital side of things. One thing that I found last year, since fundraising pages were relatively new to North Texas Giving Day, is it really is not a good use of your time to ask board members to share fundraising pages on channels they are not familiar with. I would provide a strategy, provide materials that they can easily share, make it as easy as possible for them to share across every single possible channel so that they can pick their poison. A lot of our board members are on Facebook, but they much prefer LinkedIn, and they know the people on LinkedIn because they're engaging with people on LinkedIn. Help them share their story on that preferred channel because you're going to get more dollars from that channel. They know who to tag. They know who to go to there. Facebook is a little bit more of a mystery, so it quite frankly is not going to have as high of a return for them. That's just something that we learned last year. And then if you can go to the next slide, this will be the last slide here. Is it in there?
Yeah.
Okay, that's okay. But I also wanted to touch on, okay, here it is, Facebook advertising. So last year we worked with an outside firm on a pro bono basis to do a very limited spend on back-end and front-end Facebook advertising. So we did exactly what RKD said that you could do if you had the budget for it. We put about $1,500 on back-end advertisements that were running through Facebook, targeting different segments of Facebook, lookalike audiences, with messaging asking them to give. Then we retained about $500 to boost posts. And so one thing I would mention to everyone that I've learned the hard way is, and I'm very guilty of this, and again, I've learned, it's really tempting to put your $500 on boosted posts on posts that are underperforming that you want to perform better. Forget the underperforming posts. Put your dollars on posts that are performing well. When you see a post that you put out there, a story you put out there related to North Texas Giving Day that's starting to get a lot of attention, put some spend on it. It only takes about $10 to $15 to really take that organic reach of that post and magnify it substantially. And I found through just experimentation and quite honestly failure that $15 on an already well-performing post goes so much further than even $25 to $30 on an already low-performing post. A good example of that, I should have included it in this deck, but a good example of that is we were a part of the WFAA news coverage last year, and we were highlighted. There was a really cool interview with one of our former Littles who now is a district attorney, and we took the video and created a post around it the day of North Texas Giving Day, and it got a lot of play. It got a lot of movement. And so we put a lot of our spin on that video to maximize the reach of that video on North Texas Giving Day. I think it had a good effect for us. One last thing I'll say about digital advertising is for a lot of, I think that's nonprofit folks, use RKD, use any pro bono resources you have, or even paid resources you have, volunteers you have, to experiment with this. North Texas Giving Day is an awesome opportunity for those of you who are new to it or returning to it. In my opinion, it's a great opportunity to try new things. Do what you know works, but add 2 or 3 things into it like we did with digital advertising. You're going to learn a lot of lessons. And a good example of that is what you see on this slide. On the left, you'll see what we ran on the back end for North Texas Giving Day last year. On the right of the screen, the picture with the man with the eyes, you'll see what we're currently running at about very limited spend of $500 a month, every month this year to target men to try to increase our male volunteers. The picture that you see on the right, the post you see on the right, is a result of our experimentation on North Texas Giving Day. We learned things like simplify your image. RKD is probably looking at that post and thinking, why didn't you guys simplify your image? It's busy. It's got a lot of text. The appeal is a little bit more confusing. Those were the things that when we look back on that campaign, we realized we could have done more with our dollars if we had simplified the image, simplified the appeal. And so we're still benefiting from the experimentation we did through digital advertising on North Texas Giving Day last year. So I would just encourage you to not be afraid of it, to lean into it. Go find that volunteer. Go find that board member who can help you do it and do it well. But that's some tips and tricks that we've learned just through experimentation over the last couple of years. So I'll turn it back over to CFT.
Thank you, Andrew. That is great. So now we want to open it up for questions, and if you could type them into the comment box, then all of us are here and can answer your questions. So we have one actually for you, Andrew, that was asking about dates that you started your campaign last year, and then I think this year you said you're starting it. Tell us about your dates for your campaign.
Yeah, last year we started, I think it was even maybe the end of May, and it really started with our board members. Our email communications was pretty similar, but we were starting to talk to a lot of our donors and closer friends much earlier, around actually, let's see, this is June, around this time probably. And again, I just found that it was too much because we have our gala. We moved it a little bit closer to December, but previously our gala was literally the next month, and there was just a lot of competing asks. And you're going to, of course, most nonprofits, there's so much overlap between those who come to your special events, those who give on North Texas Giving Day, and you want to create the right headspace for them to focus on those different initiatives so you can get the most out of your relationship with that donor. And so this year, again, we're starting a little bit closer, mid-July, just to make sure we're not spending too much time talking about it. So again, it would have been, I'd have to look again, but it would have been late May, early June when we started that communication. I think it was just a little bit too much.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Mara, do you want to chime in on your timing from an SPCA perspective?
Sure. We've really found that starting at the beginning of August is our sweet spot over the years. I'm just glancing back at our history and of the total amount raised every year, and it really was back in 2014 when I think it's 2014, 2015, we started pushing earlier and earlier in terms of communicating with people. We haven't ever gone earlier than August, and we kind of don't want to. So
yeah, I don't think you need to go earlier than August. Unless it's just purely a save the date that's in something else you're already doing, like a newsletter that's already happening and putting it.
Or something quarterly.
Yeah.
And Mara, you guys also have Furball, which generally happens same week sometimes, some years. And so how do you balance promoting North Texas Giving Day with a big event?
That's a good question. And for many, many years, our big gala has happened the same week as North Texas Giving Day. This year it'll be, again, our big gala will be the Saturday after. It's only been a couple of times where our gala has not happened the same time as North Texas Giving Day. And we find that it's pretty easy to balance our communications because, for one, we're speaking to a different segment of folks. For starters, the Furball, the gala, the ticket pricing is so far above what our average gift is for North Texas Giving Day that we just find other ways to do this. So we still go through everything that Jen was talking about in terms of scheduling, using that multi-channel approach that is so successful. So really, segmentation is key, and then we talk to those different groups at different times in different ways. So we really haven't found that to be an issue for us. But it takes a lot of manpower, I think, to also make sure that all of that stays apart. So that's another thing.
Lexi, do you want to share about North Texas Food Bank and your timing and how you break things out?
Sure. So I know for us this year, we're going to be looking into sending a direct mail piece in the mail, probably in late July, to promote the fundraising pages, save the date for North Texas Giving Day, and that's something that can be used from the resources that CFT does already provide with those postcard templates. And then last year we did not take advantage of the fundraising pages, which was shame on us, and we will be this year. So we will be pushing that throughout the month of August. Same thing that Andrew was saying on the call, engaging our board, engaging our different councils and groups to create those pages. As Mara said, really channeling what medium works best for our audience. And then moving forward with emails, as Jen said, with the timeline for the month of September leading up until North Texas Giving Day.
Great. Any other things you'd add, Jen?
No, I think that's
okay, good. There's another question about, switching gears a bit, about nonprofits that are just starting out, and they have a website and social media accounts, but they have not really started. They're just starting from scratch. They have no followers. They have nothing. They have not sent, maybe they've sent a few emails, but that's about it.
I would say, go ask friends and family to ask their friends and family to sign up. Make sure you have a place where people can sign up for emails. Get them to also go to social media and like you and follow you so that there's that outreach. I think that's you're just going to have to do a little groundwork to build a base so you can get people who, in the days where you can give and day of, to be your audience. But I think, if you've got some board members, I think you might just have to talk to everybody who knows about this new organization and say, I need your help. And don't be afraid to ask them, maybe you can assign this person's going to, look for the major donor side of things, and this person's going to be the one who figures out the thank you plan, and this person, I'm going to do all of the messaging, for emails and social media. But I would say don't be afraid to ask for help.
That's great.
And on the messaging side, just to add, just to reiterate again, it's so important to be as true to your mission as you possibly can. Go with the content that best illustrates what your mission accomplishes.
And I would say start with the CFT template, and then add in your stuff. If you don't have a lot of time to start from scratch, take the resources that are available, and then where you can, work in, how many people or animals or, how you're helping the community, and go from there. But I would say if you have nothing else to use, go with the templates and just try to get that message out as many times as you can.
And again, those templates are posted on the NorthTexasGivingDay.org under nonprofits and then resources, and you can download the toolkit, and then it has sample emails, sample social media posts, and then you can customize those to whatever your key message is for what the money that will do for you on North Texas Giving Day. Then we have some more tactical questions like suggested email platforms and social media schedulers and what you will use for those.
Suggested email, a lot of clients use MailChimp if they don't already use a bigger fundraising system like Illuminate or other Blackbaud products. MailChimp is pretty quick and easy to get set up. They just changed their platform so it's a little bit more of a CRM. So if you don't have anything, I think it can almost become a little mini database for you as well, which is why I would recommend it. And you could, try it out. The cost is going to depend on how big your list size is. But Constant Contact is another one that's very similar. We get you up and running pretty quickly in terms of sending out emails. And they both come with mobile responsive, mobile friendly templates so you can just drop in messaging.
On the social media side, just to chime in on that, on social media schedulers, we still, to this day, simply use Facebook scheduled posts on Facebook. We have, over the years, tried different things, Hootsuite mainly, but truly we have one person and now another person who's assisting that person on social media, so they are just blowing and going all day long.
And is Facebook your main platform, or how do you break out your social media for SCCA?
For North Texas Giving Day, especially, and all the time, Facebook is where a lot of our interactions with donors happen, where we do have that donation component that we track back specifically. So, but do not forget about all of the other platforms. Twitter is really big for us too. Instagram is huge for us. LinkedIn less so, I think, just by nature of our mission. But don't forget things like Snapchat. It's all important, but yes, Facebook, especially on our Thanksgiving Day, absolutely matches the numbers that y'all gave out at the very beginning of this webinar. Yes, it's a huge, huge part. And the scheduler on Facebook works really well, and there's no additional charge.
Great. Lexi, what do you use for social media?
Sure. So for our social media, we try things like Hootsuite. We currently use Buffer, which is another tool that you can schedule across your channels except for Instagram. But we do typically just schedule through the Facebook tools day of. We also do posts throughout the day. We have a team member who's dedicated to posting those directly. And we found that to work well for us. And we can also monitor, see the likes that are coming through, the engagement, all the insights, as well as any comments, and interact with any donors through that platform as well. And as far as email marketing, we currently use MailChimp, and we found that to work great.
CFT uses MailChimp also. What about you, Andrew?
Yeah, pretty similar to what Lexi just said. We use MailChimp. I've always used MailChimp. I'm sure Constant Contact's also really great. I know they're comparable. I love MailChimp. I think it's so easy to use. The data's great. And as someone mentioned, it's also kind of a makeshift CRM. So if you're trying to really track everyone you're having conversations with, it's great. And then in terms of our schedulers, I agree. We've found my comm specialist recently has run into a few issues with Hootsuite. I've always used that in the past, so we're starting to use Buffer as well. But we have found that there is no one-size-fits-all when it comes to those schedulers, especially if you're going free. I think they're all great, but it doesn't hurt to definitely make sure everything's going out as it's supposed to be, and just having someone's eye on each channel throughout the week, and definitely day monitoring that, answering questions, and then also, just posting manually as well sometimes is required.
Great. And another question that came in was about measures for success, and what are the key metrics that you're looking at from digital and campaigns, besides obviously the dollars raised is the number one and the number of donors, but beyond that, what are some key metrics that you all are tracking?
I would say, I think Lexi mentioned earlier, the number of new donors you get out of that is a great additional thing to measure. And then I think the breakdown that Andrew had in terms of average gift size, maybe, if your average gift size is the same as the previous year, but did you get a few more higher dollar gifts or more gifts in general? So all of those things are going to be good for you. And then I think if you really want to be a data nerd and really go deep in your data, to start looking at, did you get anybody, if you did do major donor segmentation, did you get somebody to move from what they previously gave to you to a higher amount on the giving day? Because I think that shows potential for getting more out of that person down the road as well.
Yeah.
So we're also looking at the number of scheduled gifts that are coming in and tracking that year over year, the amount as well as the number of scheduled gifts, and then how many of the donors covered the fees as well. But then all over all of our other channels, we do a lot of other tracking as well, like how did our postcard do? How many did we send out? What was the response rate percentage? How many first-time North Texas Giving Day donors did we receive from the postcard appeals? That's just on that side. On social media, we're looking at overall engagement. Number one, we're looking at the similar KPIs that we're usually looking for our website, for social media, we're looking at for North Texas Giving Day, kind of the long and the short of it. So how many unique visitors are coming to the page, how many unique visitors are hopping over to the link, tracking people through that funnel, through Google Analytics, how many how many new people that we saw hop on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, et cetera, that day, the weeks leading up to, that kind of stuff.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I think, as Karen mentioned earlier on the call, sharing those metrics, from social media and just ways that donors are engaging on North Texas Giving Day, it's important to look at all your mediums that you're using, whether that is direct mail and postcards or email or social media, and look at how many of your donations are coming through, your conversion rate. But it also goes to show that there's not one right answer and one right thing that you can do. It takes many different platforms and many different ways to make it successful.
Andrew, do you have anything to add on the metrics?
No, I agree with all of that. I would just say, find a volunteer. Or I had the first year we had so much success on North Texas Giving Day. I had an AmeriCorps employee who loved research, and I just said, figure out all the amazing things we did. And I was able to take that report to other donors and encourage them to follow similar models. So, for example, showing the impact that first year of that $75,000 matching gift we had. The next year in Q1, I was able to take that report to one of our major gift donors, ask them to double their gift and provide a limited matching gift for an event that we were having in April. We used that knowledge and those metrics to inform how we put that appeal together at that event and raised $93,000 in April, which set us up really well for the rest of Q2. And, I just think that you can never learn too much because you can package those metrics in such a way to actually encourage your donor base to become bigger partners with you at the major gift level. And you can also learn a lot that you can apply throughout the year. So I think it's really important to find someone to parse that.
And I'll just throw back in, for those matching sponsors and people, corporations that are partnering with you, any of the metrics that you have from previous years is a great thing to take to them and say, here's how big my email file is, here's how much traffic we got that day, here's how many times I can put your logo up, and the number of emails that are going out or in the light box, and how many ways it's going to pop up, to help convince someone why it's of value for them to be a sponsor for you. So I think, data you can use it in other ways. So the more you can track, the better. And if this is your first year and you're a small organization, you could try to partner with somebody and say, this is the kind of information we're going to gather this year and we can get to you next year, or after the fact if you don't have it ahead of time. But I do think we've done a lot for some clients in terms of giving them those estimates on the number of impressions. It's almost like advertising for those sponsors. That will help them say, yeah, my stuff's going to be seen 1 million times in one day or in 2 weeks, or 500,000 times. I mean, they can compare that to what they're paying for other advertising and realize this is a heck of a lot cheaper to help a local organization and partner with them.
Yeah.
Great. Another question, and I think all of you have said that you do treat your Giving Day donors differently, but they say, do you treat your Giving Day donors differently in terms of follow-up during the rest of the year and keeping them engaged and soliciting other gifts?
For us at the North Texas Food Bank, I wouldn't say we treat them differently. At the beginning we did, just because we could segment out the new donors to our email file, but we still kind of push them through the same regular digital communication that our other donors receive, whether that's appeals throughout the year, e-newsletters, different updates like that. But I would say as far as the digital strategy goes, we kept it fairly the same. For direct mail, I know that was a little different where we didn't want to push and send appeal after appeal to these donors. And we looked at that a little bit differently and maybe cut down that mail schedule.
And pretty similar with us. Yeah, just from the SPCA of Texas. Yeah, similar, except for day of. We also did the day of is very, very different, of course, but the hourly thank yous. And one other thing I wanted to add, that day with the thank you at the end of the day, we not only send the hourly thank yous, but we also send a last thank you to everyone, so that every one of our donors, in essence, gets two thank you emails. one within the hour that they give, or if they give multiple times every time, that would be wonderful. We also send a video that we create in an email, embedded in an email at the very end of the night with here's how your gift makes an impact on our mission. But then after that, very, very, very similar to what Lexi was saying.
And do you send that overall thank you to people that didn't give? Like, do you just send that to your whole, or only to people who gave?
Only to people who gave, that overall thank you at the very end.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And Andrew, what about you?
Yeah, so I agree. I'm not sure we treat them differently, although the communications, there's definitely a segment of past North Texas Giving Day donors that we like to really highlight the impact that they had last year and show how they can increase that impact this year. So if we do treat them any differently, it's leading into North Texas Giving Day with those who gave before. But I really see, for us, North Texas Giving Day it's our first run at end-of-year giving. It's early in the year. You can experiment. It's a great reacquisition tool. It's a great acquisition tool for new donors. So for us, it's really just trying to get in front of people for maybe the second time that year to get them to give, trying to get ahead of December to make our December a little bit easier for us. The way that I then agree. I just put them right into the regular communications of the agency, just like you would with any other new donor. But one thing that is, I think, a really good idea that we've started doing this year is in December, I wouldn't go back to your North Texas Giving Day donors for a specific second gift in December because it's a little close to their first gift. But what I would do is I would start looking at those donors who gave and opportunities to meet with those donors early in Q1 of the next year, so January, maybe early February, to see how you can move them into increased patterns of giving with the agency throughout the year. So for us, North Texas Giving Day was, when I first started working on it, a way of just re-engaging past donors because there's a lot of deferred maintenance and individual giving at the agency at the time. Now it's really the focus has been on new donor acquisition because we've created other channels for them to give throughout the year once they come in for the first time through North Texas Giving Day. So, for example, a lot of those donors who gave $500 to $1,000 on North Texas Giving Day, we've created a leadership society that starts at $1,500 and is a 2-year pledge at $1,500 a year. They've now been stewarded. They know more about the organization. I can start moving them into that leadership level and ask them to make a 2-year commitment at $1,500. So I'm moving them up for the year, getting sustainable funding for the next year, and then, again, doing more fundraising earlier in the year and opening up North Texas Giving Day for, again, less on how do we raise more money and with more of a focus on how do we get more new donors. That's kind of the direction we're going with it. I don't know if that's helpful, but.
Very helpful.
I would just add to that, we've seen at RKD Group, most of our clients, they're more likely to give a second gift the sooner you ask them from their first gift. So we would not recommend taking anybody out from the year-end stuff. Maybe you look at, okay, in December we're going to email people 8 to 12 times. Maybe you've got some crazy schedule. Maybe they only get half of those. But I would say you should put them in things pretty quickly. I would say the only ones I would recommend maybe taking out are the ones with those extraordinary donors who have major donor potential, who you could put into a new segment and you're asking them in a different way for things. But I think the sooner you get them into your file, generally the better off you have a chance of getting a second gift out of them, hopefully within the same year.
Yeah, that's interesting. And just to clarify, we definitely do that. So I agree. We sort of passively include them in the end-of-year appeal and then let them decide if they're going to, and I'm sure it's different for every organization, let them decide if they're going to make a second gift and then start the more targeted fundraising earlier in the year. But that's really interesting insight.
That is interesting. Yeah, we have more fatigue, but we try to space it out a little more, but that's interesting. So there is a question about small budget nonprofits and where should they spend their limited budget?
I would say invest in MailChimp or an email program for sure. I would say, if you can do even just a few $100s for some Facebook boosted posts, potentially a likes campaign if you don't have a big following already. In terms of hard costs, those are the two things I would say I would most recommend you spend some money on them. And everything else, I think you could, be looking for volunteers to help out with the communications and the messaging and getting more people to help you get the asks out there. But I would say definitely email and some social advertising.
I think that's most bang for your buck. I was even just looking at what we've spent in the last few years for those postcards, just thinking of a different channel. But of course, you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck on anything digital. But just to give y'all an example, from last year, we mailed 19,000, just over 19,000 postcards, got a 4.6% response rate, and got back 387 first-time donors at the expense of about $3,000. So,
wow.
It depends on, it's the scale. Like, if you can invest in that and that's part of your overall strategy, great. But I would just use that as an example to say, for those with smaller budgets, go digital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's not the cost of printing.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about tracking your postcard donors.
Mm-hmm.
Did you give them a specific URL on that postcard, or how did you determine that those 387 people came from that postcard?
We have given people an exact link in the past so that we can be able to see who that is.
Mm-hmm. So you have a different link on your postcard than you do in your email, than in different links in different emails,
mm-hmm.
so you're tracking what is most effective.
Or just depending for the postcard, different link. We also, I think in the very distant past, we've even asked people, like after the fact, hey, what medium did you give through? Mm-hmm. Having those further conversations with folks. But then we like to track as much as we can on where we acquire people and how they come through. So Google Analytics is your friend, and if you can get really technical in Google Tag Manager, you can get some really great information back. I am a novice in Google Tag Manager, so I don't want to speak too much about it, but of course that's on the digital side. So different links. We've even in the distant past, one time, oh my gosh, it was probably 10 years ago, I think we bought a billboard and we used a different link there as well to try to track them.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and we really haven't talked about surveying donors, but North Texas Food Bank does a great job at year-end after their holiday campaign to survey their donors to say, to find out did the billboards and the other things they've done affect people's giving, and I think that's something you could think about adding into the mix for North Texas Giving Day in the couple days or weeks that follow, sending out a survey. It's another way to do stewardship and to thank them for supporting you, but then to ask even just 3 to 5 questions about, was it a friend who asked you? Did you see an ad somewhere? Did you see us on TV? Did you get one of our emails? And did you get a postcard from us? Just a couple short questions, and I think you could help measure if you're doing other things that aren't just something that's easy to track back.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Any other things, Andrew, that you would add to that?
No, I think that's great. I agree about the creating unique URLs. We used to do that when I was a marketing director. It was a little bit different, but we were able to draw a very clear line between our physical collateral, flyers, postcards, and where people were coming in on the website and how they were purchasing. I think that's a great strategy if you're able to do it.
That's great. A couple other tactical, very specific questions. Andrew, I know you mentioned your board members use LinkedIn, and so there's a broad question for all of you on what's the best way to engage on LinkedIn. Andrew, if you want to start.
Sure. Yeah, honestly, for us, it was really mostly a question of creating the opportunity for them to share posts on LinkedIn and share their pages. The education really was on how to share those pages successfully. I'm actually not on LinkedIn as much as I perhaps should be. But I don't think it was much different than what they were doing on Facebook. It was really just giving them the opportunity to creating those links. on LinkedIn as well as on other pages so that they could share those links with their network. I don't know if anyone else has a different experience.
We don't really do a lot on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I can just say I know that from our paid media team's approach to LinkedIn, it's generally really expensive. So I wouldn't say there's anything quite like doing boosted posts or advertising anything that you do there. I do think it's great if you can have some pages or some copy that you want your board members to share about why it's important to support the organization on North Texas Giving Day, and just say copy and paste, put this into your LinkedIn, and that way all of their networks will see, you get the emails, and if you're on LinkedIn all day, you get the notifications that somebody's posted something or taken some action. So that's really what you're trying to tap into.
Last year, we sent out a 10 reasons to give on North Texas Giving Day sample, and Byron Sanders from Big Thought was one of the examples, and I know that he got 136, links from that. And so the idea this year is to share a Why I Give post. And so if you all could draft that, anyone on the line could draft a similar thing for your board to share, your staff, and really anyone, volunteers, anyone to share with their personal networks. That is one thing that we were talking about with the Richards Group and the social media workshop, that unlike Facebook where you see barely anything that people post, on LinkedIn, it's still, you are likely to see your friends post. So especially because people don't do it as often. And that's a great way.
Right.
If your fundraisers have set up fundraising pages, they could share the link to their, why they give and their fundraising page link there.
I think that's great. Yeah, for us, it really is one of those things where we focus so heavily on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter that it's just for us as staff members remembering if you're posting an impactful Why I Give post or asking people to start a conversation, don't forget LinkedIn, as well, which every now and then we do. And our boards are always there to remind us, hey, my network's actually on LinkedIn. So it's just, I think, really more a reminder to not forget that, as someone I think earlier mentioned, there are millions of channels out, well, not millions, but there's lots of channels out there to use, and just use them all.
That's just like next door. You can also do your neighbors and your neighbors' neighbors, and you can pick the widest circle you can. And if we all do that, then we'll cover the whole neighborhood, the whole of North Texas.
Sure. Something that we actually do with Nextdoor is we have developed a list of our volunteers who are in various neighborhoods across the Metroplex, and on a regular basis, not just on North Texas Giving Day, we ask those volunteers, we'll send them a message and say, hey, here's some suggested messaging, here's imagery. Would you consider posting on your Nextdoor from your personal account?
Oh, that's great.
You can spread the word then, and you can really be able, you can send the message that you want to send out with that. You make it easy for those folks to do it.
Something that we found to be successful with LinkedIn is connecting with our match sponsors and providing them either copy to use, a graphic, or just having them reshare from our LinkedIn page where we would tag our match sponsor if they had an account. That way they could share it with their employees. So it kind of gives a twofold approach there.
That's great. Awesome. So one of the questions was about matching gifts from employers, and so say again how you did that.
How to secure.
Yes.
Sure. So for us at the North Texas Food Bank, year-round, we try to secure matching gifts. So right when North Texas Giving Day ends, we try to either, get those same sponsors on board for next year. And something that we did this year was right after North Texas Giving Day, we put together a campaign presentation where we showed just in PowerPoint, so something simple you can do. We showed all the places, as Jen mentioned, where we did recognize our sponsors, whether that was in digital emails, in newsletters. We showed, how much revenue was raised, and thanks to their matching gift, how fundraising was leveraged overall. And for us at the food bank, how many meals were ultimately provided from their sponsorship and from the day overall. So I think that gave our sponsors a great insight into how their dollars were impacting the community. And for us, we have a team that secures those matches, whether they're corporate sponsors, whether they're local, whether if you're a smaller organization, if it's, a $200 match or $500 match, I feel like any amount is going to help leverage your giving.
Mm-hmm. And I'll just add, if you want to think long-term about employer matching gifts, there are services like doublethedonation.com that you can integrate into your website. Their pricing looks like it starts at $4.99 per year, so pretty reasonable. They will give you some code that embeds a search into your website, into a page, and that you can, a donor can search for their employer and then get all the information and download the forms that you need for, like, if it's Bank of America or whoever their employer is, and submit that paperwork. The follow-up on that, though, is just encouraging those donors to do the paperwork, legwork.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So there's two things there, the matching gifts that you're securing, the big matching donors to help be part of your appeal and your messaging during the day, and then there's the employee matching that has this double the donation where you can look at company lists and encourage those people. And so if you have donors that work for those companies that they match their gifts, you could also tailor an email specifically to them saying, I know you work for PepsiCo and they match their gifts, consider giving on Giving Day, and so that you can match those gifts.
Yeah.
Really quickly to go back to a question you asked me a little bit ago, Carol, the mailers. Yeah, I wanted to add a little bit of something. There was something tickling the back of my mind. I don't know if you could see the look on my face. I went back and looked it up. The other way you can track that on what donors responded and how many were new donors is that was also, we've done both the link and we've also done it where you kind of go and do that research on the back end. So after you've gotten all your gifts entered into your CRM, then you go back and you say, okay, let's pull everyone that did get tagged or that got the postcard that made a gift, and then you can see who's a new donor, who's a returning donor. So last year I think we had 903 overall responses and 387 of those were new donors. That's doing that on the back end, like just digging in and making sure you get all your numbers right. So I just wanted to bring that back up because my previous answer was bugging me.
Thank you. Right. So it wasn't necessarily that they entered a URL from a postcard. It was more that you looked at it after the fact and matched up who you mailed the postcard to who gave.
And both are good.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm.
Okay. Well, that's great. I know we scheduled this for 2 hours, but people are probably losing a little bit of steam of listening to all of us, but we are always here to answer your questions if you send emails through the Zendesk and to North Texas Giving Day at cftexas.org. We can answer additional questions and get them also to the speakers if you have specific questions for them. And of course, want to remind you of the upcoming trainings. We have that are all listed on the resources page, but we have several sip and learns that are at happy hour locations, and we also have nonprofit speakers at each one of those, board engagement and fundraising pages. All the one-on-ones are on our Facebook page on the North Texas Giving Day Facebook. Engaging Hispanic Donors is our next in-person training on July 29th. And we have many videos coming up as well. They are all on the resources page, which again you can get to there to going by northtexasgivingday.org and then for nonprofits and going to the resources section. So that is where you go. And wanted to thank all of our speakers today and all of you out there listening. And if you could also send us your feedback, if you go to your phone and text nonprofit to 70402, we look at all that feedback, and we would love to have your feedback so that we can continue to make these great trainings that help you drive donations on North Texas Giving Day. Thank you so much.